For an individual, team, company, community, or country to unleash their greatness, they must seek out and rise to the great challenges that are thrust upon them. There is no other way. And the fact is, a great challenge is a form of finishing school. And by that I mean, once you're able to rise up to meet the mental rigors and the physical demands of a challenge, you'll be finished with self-limiting beliefs, finished with settling for less, finished with excuses, and most definitely finished playing a small game. Hi there, this is Garyryanblair, and I've got a great message for you today that you're absolutely going to love. It's titled, Unleash Your Greatness, an action guide for peak performance. Let's get after it. There are three kinds of people in this world playing three different types of games. The wills, the won'ts, and the can'ts. The wills play to win and they accomplish much. The won'ts, they play it safe and they accomplish little. And the can'ts play to lose and they don't accomplish anything. So which one are you? This message serves to inspire those who will and to put a good scare into the won'ts and the can'ts. So let's start by focusing in on the power of I will. There are no words that are as great nor as powerful as the words I will. There is strength, conviction, depth, solidarity, decision, focus, confidence, and sheer determination in a loud, ringing tone which punctuates their delivery. The words I will send an advanced message to your mind and to those within earshot. It's a message of triumph over adversity, of victory in the face of great resistance, of the strength, will, and personal constitution to persevere until the end. The words I won't also send an advanced message, but it's one of resistance, of opposition, excuse-making, and protective posturing. And the words I can't are the worst of all, as they represent a hopeless victim mentality. Though deep down, every human being knows that he's in this world just once, as a unique entity, and that no accident, however strange, will throw together a second swing at the bat, a mulligan, a do-over. He knows it, but he hides behind it like a bad conscience. Why is that? What's a simple four-letter word? Fear. So what is it that compels people to be fearful? To think and act like part of the herd? To say I won't or I can't, rather than I will. For the majority of us, it's a desire for safety, for refuge, security. In short, the inclination to play it safe and to remain in the comfort zone. Overall, people are more fearful than they are courageous. And what they fear most are the troubles with which any unconditional honesty and intellectual maturity would burden them with. People hide their underperforming lives behind fear. And by doing so, they violate the greatest principle of all. The principle that every human being is a unique wonder and has beauty within that is worth bringing out. That ultimately, every human being is capable of greatness. The fact is, fear is unworthy of your companionship. And when a person who says, I will, despises other people, it is their attitude and their behavior that they despise. For he knows what is possible when one deploys the rigorous consistency of a commitment to a worthwhile goal. The human being who does not wish to belong to the masses, the one who dares to show the world that he or she what they are capable of creating, must cease being comfortable with himself. They must resist the gravitational pull of the comfort zone, and instead they must follow their conscience, which shouts out at them, unleash your greatness. What you are present doing, opining, and desiring is not really you. See, I admire I will people, those who inspire excellence and greatness in others for two primary reasons. The first, they serve as a beautiful example worth emulating, and they challenge me to become a better human being. And in the words of Carl Sagan, who are we if not measured by our impact on others? We're not who we say we are. We're not who we want to be. But we are the sum of the influence and the impact that we have in our lives upon others. For the remainder of this message, I'll be sharing with you a blueprint for unleashing your greatness and inspiring others through your example. It all begins with the understanding the nature of a challenge and its impact on human performance. The fact is, the human body serves as the perfect metaphor for understanding the importance of a challenge, for the simple reason that the body is built to adapt and to respond to the demands that are placed upon it. The stronger the demand, the stronger the response. Physical muscles continue to grow and strengthen through the principle of progressive resistance. This principle is based on a theory that muscles must be challenged in order to upgrade and grow, and that they will progressively work to overcome any resistance force when required to do so. And the opposite is also true. as physical muscles will downgrade and weaken with the absence of a challenge. As an example, if you simply lift the same amount of weight each time you head to the gym, you keep your muscles in a comfort zone and don't provide any resistance for them to adapt and to grow. Even worse, if you stop weight and resistance training altogether, all gains become losses, as muscle without challenge eventually reverts to fat. The principle of progressive resistance operates the same way in every area of our lives, and that is exactly why we all need to be challenged. And not just physically challenged. We need intellectual, leadership, spiritual, relational, sales, and any other type of performance challenge that stretches us, that forces us to overcome adversity, that tests our character and commitment, and which inspires us to say adios to our comfort zone. So when will your finest hour come and how will it arrive? Do you really think it's going to materialize without a challenge? Without your perseverance being tested? Without you being pushed to your limits, tormented, and put through your own personal hell? In short, for an individual, team, company, community, or country to become great, they must seek out and rise to the great challenges that are thrust upon them. There is no other way. So let's talk about the rewards of rising to a challenge. There is no purer form of success, no more exact and demanding test of what you're capable of, than to face a challenge and to find joy in the capacity to meet it. And while we all have different goals and aspirations, we all love and benefit from a challenge, something that inspires us to reach the full peak of our potential, that jailbreaks us from our comfort zone, and which transforms us into a far more capable version of ourselves. The ultimate reason for setting challenging goals is to entice you to become the person it takes to achieve them. As you're about to find out, who you become, as well as the traits and skill sets that you develop in rising to meet a challenge, are so much more important than the nature of the challenge itself. So let's focus in on the 10 rewards of rising to a challenge. The first, a challenge develops mental toughness. It's actually very simple. You either rise to meet the mental demands and physical rigors of a challenge, or you succumb to them. And because victory begins in the mind, all challenges are initially won or lost between your ears. The very nature of a challenge sets an appropriate stage for practicing mental toughness, which by definition means a psychological edge that enables one to remain focused and confident during high-pressure situations to perform at one's full potential. Mental toughness means bending the body's software to control its hardware. It works if you're standing over a putt on the 18th green, it works if you're presenting to a room full of people, and it works if you're serving for game, set, and match. Number 2, a challenge stands down fear. A challenge is unique in that it immediately engages a fight or flight mechanism, and you never know how you're going to react until you're faced with it. Fear is never a reason for quitting, but it's an excuse for those unwilling to face their doubts, their insecurities, and their mental boogeyman. Therefore, your first duty in rising to meet a challenge is to conquer fear and the mental resistance that it brings along with it. You must get rid of it quickly, or you will get steamrolled by it. And if you're ever going to find your greatness, you must decide that what you want is bigger and far more important than the fear which prevents you from achieving it. You must choose to put that fear behind you. You must decide to just stare it right in the eye, to walk straight through it, and to advance towards the goal with confidence, with conviction, and with certainty. Number 3, a challenge inspires courageous acts. Courage is the greatest resource that you have in rising to meet a challenge. What good is a challenge or a big ambitious goal if there's no willingness to overcome fear, mental and physical resistance, adversity, or self-doubt? The conceptual opposite of courage is cowardice. We're therefore confronted with the reality that we either habitually practice courage or we habitually practice cowardice. Courage is remarkable, and it takes on the form of every virtue at its testing point. And when courage is tested, it manifests itself in the form of character, initiative, self-control, and responsible behavior. And when cowardice is tested, it too presents itself in opposite forms to include bad character, procrastination, excuses, and blame. The fourth reward for rising to meet a challenge is that a challenge tests your limits. It's imperative that you accept this reality. When you rise up to meet a challenge, you'll never be the same again. You'll either cope or crumble. You'll become better or bitter. You'll emerge stronger or weaker. It has to be this way, as a challenge exists to test your limits, to push you beyond the breaking point, and to separate you from the herd. You'll never know the full measure of your potential until you're tested. You can never be sure whether you'll step up or falter in any given situation. Therefore, passing the test presented by a challenging goal proves that you're stronger, tougher, more resilient, and far more capable than you're ever imagined. Number 5, a challenge focuses attention. A great challenge is like a great romance. It calls for your passion and your devotion, and it demands to be the center of your attention. Rising to meet a challenge is a form of seduction. It means concentrating your energy and resources on what's most important. That is, keeping the fire burning. And you do that by making everything count. Everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do must be focused on goal acquisition and on leveraging all available resources. Focus is best seen as a preemptive strike against mediocrity. The moment you focus on a challenging goal, your goal becomes a magnet that pulls you and your resources towards it. The more focused your energies, the more power you generate, and the sooner you will live happily ever after. The 6th reward. A challenge builds self-confidence. I want you to think of a challenge, any kind of a challenging goal, and ask yourself, what role does self-confidence play in rising to meet that challenge? The fact is, no mountains can be climbed, no hearts won, no opportunities seized, no books written, no elections won, and certainly no victories enjoyed without self-confidence. Now think of something you fear, anything that makes you flinch, and ask yourself, what role does self-confidence play in overcoming fear? See, fear is the greatest enemy that you're ever going to face. It impedes your ability to succeed physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Fear negatively impacts everything you want to be, have, and do. The inspired ability to rise to a challenge and to climb great heights is directly attributable to your self-confidence. As your challenges build, so does your self-confidence. The 7th reward. A challenge matures perspective. Few things in life are capable of radically altering your perspective, but developing the capacity to rise to a challenge not only impacts the size of your results, but it transforms your mind and it expands your worldview. It changes everything. The way you walk, talk, communicate. It all exudes a level of self-confidence and self-assuredness that's absolutely impossible not to notice. A challenge involves psychological trauma that induces fear, self-doubt, and insecurity, while simultaneously dislodging you from the comfort zone, ultimately bringing about a superior performance. And by taking on a challenge, you're pushing yourself beyond any previously imagined comfort zone and performance standard. You'll be expected to pass tests that will tempt you to quit, and you'll be required to pay the high price that success demands while entering new psychological waters. But by rising to meet a challenge, you provide yourself with undeniable proof that you have what it takes. And this proof cements in your mind that you are the type of person capable of performing great acts, and that you really can do anything that you set your mind to. So number 8, a challenge demands superior execution. A challenge is limited value if not overcome, and expecting to get better results from the same old behavior will only succeed in perpetuating your current situation. It will not get you to another level of performance. Great companies, lives, families, everything are all built around extraordinary execution skills. The better you execute, the better you perform, and the bigger challenge you can take on. It's that simple. You must become acutely aware that a challenge has razor-thin margins for error and will not tolerate lapses in judgment or sloppy execution. It expects you to give it your undivided attention. It calls for profound self-discipline, and it demands that you execute as if your life and your reputation depended on the outcome. The 9th reward. A challenge calls for an indomitable spirit. It's irresponsible to take on a big challenge without the will, the heart, and the mindset to win it, as nothing can withstand the power of an indomitable spirit. And in your efforts to rise to meet a challenge, you will be buffeted and pummeled. You will be criticized and opposed. You will be attacked and assaulted. You will struggle and fall. Your commitment will be relentlessly tested, and that is precisely why a challenge calls for an indomitable, unconquerable spirit. And having an indomitable spirit means that you have the type of spirit that's incapable of being overcome, subdued, or vanquished. And if you passionately believe that you're up to the challenge and that you're committed to seeing it through to the end, that it is your right and your responsibility to cultivate an unbeatable mind and to enforce your will over the world. The 10th, and perhaps the most important reward for rising to meet a challenge, is that a challenge empowers freedom. As we all know, freedom is not free. It requires blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice. But freedom is the ultimate prize for rising to meet the physical rigors and the mental demands of a challenge. In virtually every case, the decision to rise up to meet a challenge all boils down to the desire for greater freedom in one's lives. This includes freedoms from and freedoms to. Allow me to explain. Freedom from the monkey on your back, from self-imposed limitations, from the opinions of others, shackles of debt, from self-limiting beliefs, freedom from the comfort zone, from settling for less, freedom from the masses, and most importantly, freedom from fear. In addition, freedoms too. You'll have the freedom to focus on projects that you find important, to succeed or fail on your own terms, to doodle, to wander, and to experiment, to think and dream without limits, to set and control the agenda in your life, to showcase your talents. You'll have the freedom to set your own schedule, to say no without guilt, to love passionately and authentically. And to enjoy these freedoms requires that you rise to the challenge that life presents and that you pay the required price in full, in advance, and without complaint. So let's now turn our attention to the consequences of not being challenged. But before diving too deep into the consequences and psychological effects of not being challenged, I'd like you to think of someone you admire and ask yourself, what challenges did they rise up to meet in order to become the person they became? What you'll find in answering that question is that behind every great man or woman is a series of challenges that were overcome, fears that were overruled, belief systems that were overhauled, and obstacles that were overrun. Every day of your life presents challenges, big and small, that you either rise to or fall from. And while some may consider a dream job to be one that pays you to do nothing all day long and offers no stress or expectations of performance, nothing, and I emphasize, nothing could be further from the truth. So what is fear costing you? What are the consequences of keeping your dreams on hold? What is the impact on your life when you run away rather than towards a challenge? So let's look at the consequences associated with quitting, with being underemployed, and not rising to meet the demands of a challenge. There are 7. The first, diminished self-worth and personal value. Eventually, you'll come to think of yourself as the kind of person who is undeserving of success. And when you begin to lose faith in yourself, it leads to a downward spiral of psychological devastation that is extremely difficult to overcome. The second, imprisoned by the comfort zone. Adapting to your comfort zone creates habits of thinking and acting that become dysfunctional and debilitating. By remaining in your comfort zone, you choose to incarcerate rather than liberate your talents, skills, hopes, and dreams. The third consequence is the perpetuation of pain. Avoiding a challenge only achieves self-sabotage and the perpetuation of pain, which leads to a cycle of failure and disappointment. Failure's high price is commonly imposed through bankruptcy, unemployment, depression, poor grades, stress, and other forms of physical and psychological pain. Number 4 is character assassination. By allowing fear to control your life, you will serve as a disturbing example of wasted talent, of someone who chose fear over courage. Your life will be viewed as a sad consequence of neglect, of excuse-making, self-pity, poor character, lack of direction, and of a courage deficit. Number 5, the development of a quitter reputation. Quitting is a habit and it's the path of least resistance. A challenge requires you to increase your level of resistance and tolerance to pain, to inconvenience, and to sacrifice. And once you develop a quitter reputation, your options will become limited. Your reputation will become questionable, and your future, without a doubt, will be in serious jeopardy. Number 6, you'll have little to no impact on life. The ultimate test of the impact of your life is twofold. Whether the world you leave behind is qualitatively different and better from that which you inherited, and what specific contribution you made to that change. The fact is, you're either remarkable or you're irrelevant. And by embracing fear and running from a challenge, you'll have little to show for your existence and the precious time that you were given. And finally, number 7, limited earning ability. You negatively affect your financial opportunities by choosing fear over courage. Fear compromises the quality of your life, It undermines your ability to provide for your family, and it turns your golden retirement years into a time of fear, uncertainty, shame, and massive regret. By not actively stretching yourself and rising to meet a challenge, you'll only survive, and you will never know what it means to enjoy safety, security, and peace of mind. So let's now focus in on the rules of a challenge. Life is, in some respects, like a game of chess. The opening gambit may very well have been made a long time ago, and responses long set in motion. Indeed, some pieces may have been lost, but the board is still filled with opportunity. Each move is important, each decision has consequence, and every wasted opportunity is a tactical error. You've got to understand, every move counts. Different and sometimes conflicting interests drive the competition on the other side of the chessboard of life. You're often your own greatest adversary, prone to self-destruction, sabotage, and other means of moving away from victory and into checkmate. And just as chess has its rules, so does the game of life. And while knowing a game's rules does not guarantee that you'll win every match, disregarding the rules makes playing the game difficult and winning virtually impossible. So how do we do it? How do we rise up to meet a challenge? Well, here's your playbook for success. Rule number 1, throw your hat in the ring. The best act of creation is self-creation. And while life does thrust challenges upon us, the best challenges in life are the ones that we create for ourselves. Therefore, actively look for opportunities to stretch yourself physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, vocationally, artistically, musically, in any way that tests your mettle. Rule number 2, believe it will be so. The world takes us at our own valuation. It believes in the person who believes in themselves, but it has little use for the timid soul, the one who's never certain, the one who cannot rely on his own judgment, the one who operates from a position of fear. Victory begins in the mind, so begin by believing it will be so. Rule number 3, enforce your will. Every great achievement, and I emphasize, every great achievement and comeback in human history has been the result of the choices, the determinations, and the creations of the human will. It is impossible to look a challenge in the eye without perceiving how much victory depends upon the extent to which your will is cultivated, strengthened, and most importantly, enforced. Rule number 4, do what needs to be done. The ability to make yourself do what needs to be done, when it must be done, whether you like it or not, is the way you rise to meet the demands of a challenge. Most people are able, but unwilling to master this rule. Rule number 5, persevere until the end. Perseverance is ultimately a physical, emotional, and spiritual demonstration of how badly you want to succeed. It's fueled by a heart-pounding, ego-bashing, soul-searching test of your limits. So let them see you sweat as you express your greatness not by the acts that you perform, but by the perseverance that made those acts possible. Rule number 6, no excuses. If you're up to the demands of a challenging goal, you'll find a way. And if not, I promise you, you'll find an excuse. And if you experiment with excuses, it's largely because you find your talents to be inadequate. Excuses are personality defects, a symptom of mediocrity, and a character stain in need of immediate removal. Rule number 7, push yourself. Competing at the highest level is the greatest test of one's character, ability, and spirit. Therefore, don't limit your challenges. You must challenge your limits. Push and demand more from yourself, because if the goal does not challenge you, it cannot change you. Sometimes, it's a darn good thing to bite off more than you can chew. Rule number 8 is to raise the stakes. Rising up to meet the demands of a challenge requires you to raise the bar of your performance, as well as the stakes of accountability. There is no greater challenge than to have someone relying upon you to deliver on your word. And there is no greater satisfaction than to vindicate their expectation. Rule number 9 is to take intelligent risks. No mountains can be climbed, no hearts won, no opportunities seized, no books written, no elections won, and certainly no victories enjoyed without risk. Risk-taking is not an opportunity to be avoided, but it is something to be exploited as long as you do it intelligently. And finally, rule number 10 is to celebrate. To pay the price, to work long and hard, to compete fairly at the peak of your abilities until the goal is achieved, are all part of the sweetness of rising to meet a challenge. Celebrating is a joyful, beautiful, and a very selfish act of kindness. It allows you to reflect on and to reinforce the many acts of courage, commitment, and risk-taking involved in securing victory. It reminds you of what you've become, what you have overcome, and what you're capable of doing. So now, are you finally ready for a challenge? Are you ready to rip the lid off any past performance and to ignite a life-altering performance explosion? See, the fact is, there's no point in pretending that rising to meet a challenge does not have the capacity to transform your life. And while there are plenty of excuses, there's not one good reason for you to procrastinate, to say that you're not ready to take on a big challenge. A challenge is a form of finishing school. And by that I mean, once you're able to rise up to meet the demands of a challenge, you'll be finished with self-limiting beliefs. You'll be finished with settling for less, finished with excuses, finished playing a small game, and most importantly, finished with living a sedentary life. See, a number of years ago, I had an epiphany, an awakening of my soul that has fueled my passion ever since. After experiencing a number of setbacks and challenges, which I did rise up to meet, I came to the understanding that life was never meant to be simple nor easy, and that the rigorous, the strenuous life is the one that produces the most desirable fruit. In fact, your ability to do so is the only sustainable resource that you have to astound yourself and to show the world your greatness. That epiphany led me to create the 100-Day Challenge, the world's most powerful goal-setting program for rising up to meet any challenge and for driving radical results fast. It's the perfect solution for the biggest problem faced by everyone. That is, the need for more, better, and faster results in a highly competitive world. The overall concept is built around two motivational tenets: a fixed period of time, which is deadline-driven, in this case 100 days, and a strong desire to accomplish worthwhile goals within that deadline. And the best part is that the 100-Day Challenge is appropriate for everyone in the boardroom, the classroom, the locker room, and the living room. Now, you're going to love the 100-Day Challenge primarily because we focus on one thing. That is, getting you from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And we're pretty darn good at it. In fact, the 100-Day Challenge has delivered jaw-dropping results for more than 425,000 people in over 80 countries around the world, to include some of the best companies in the world. So why wait another moment? Take the 100-Day Challenge at 100daychallenge.com and let me show you how to unleash your greatness.